Greetings web folks, so today we are going to begin making this game, Unique Candlestick, work online. To do this we are going to need to use the net HTTP module and especially their listen and serve and handle func methods. To do that we're going to use a fairly lazy HTML generation thing. We're not going to worry about that. There's a much better way of building a decent HTML thing using templates. We'll come to that next week. For now I just want to get something up and running. And before we do that though, we need to look at last week's challenge. So, what was last week's challenge? I asked you to make it so that the person who won the last round starts the next round. And then, at the very end of 13 rounds, to announce who won. So, the first bit shouldn't be too tricky. Let's have a look. Play one. Here's where it is. We have a little loop here. Oh, here's our loop where actually the game happens. For I is less than 13, do a round, and we've just used I mod 4, so it's basically taking it in turns to who goes first. Now let's have a look, see what round returns. Does it return anything? Currently it doesn't return anything, it just changes stuff. Might be helpful if this returns who won. We'll call that an int. And who won is win P from decides trick. So if we just return that, then we now know who won outside of this, and we can go into the next. It's already changed all the cards and everything everyone has, but just on the outside we get to keep a better count. So W colon equals, so that's the winner. Let's not call it W. Yeah, we'll leave it as W for now. Players. This should probably be a random number for the first one. I didn't say that before, but let's do that. See. We've got rand.int. And this seems to be a 4-player game. We've just fixed it as 4 players. So I'm just going to lazily throw 4. That should return 0 to 3. Get us started. And the winner could be any of those 4 players. But it could also be -1, I think. So if W equals -1, then W equals I'm going to put the W on the outside here. W colon equals -1. Get rid of that. And so now we set it to rand.int 4. And here we can just put W, and that should mean that the person who goes first is, let's have a look. So please choose a card, 1, 6 or 8. So it's letting, it looks like it's letting me go first here. I'm going to choose 1. No, I'll choose 6. So yeah, that looks like I went first that time. Who won that round? Player 2 won that round with 12. Player 2 has gone first this time. So if I then choose 8, oh, none of those will win. No, 1 could win. Nope, that wouldn't win. 4 might win. Let's go with 4. But unfortunately player 1 played 8, which switched it back around again, and player 3 won with the 12, and player 3 is starting. Brilliant. So that looks like it's working correctly for getting the right player to start. I'll run it one more time and see if a different player starts. That was me again. And this time player 3 has started. So yeah, that looks like a random player is starting and it's doing the correct things there. Next question. What was that question? Let's have a quick thing. I think I wrote it down. Oh yeah, announce whoever won. So. Oh, that should happen here. So this now is get winner. Now the winner is of course the player with the most unique points. So we can't just pick the person with the most points. That would have been easy. What we need to do is for everyone in the loop, we need to check if it's unique. And if it's unique, or well, maybe we just need to check if it beats the previous result. And if it beats the previous result, then we need to check if it's unique. That means we don't have to loop quite so often. And then only if it's unique and beats the previous result do you get to become winner. And I think we'll make the previous result as 0. So we got a WP, that's a winning player, equals -1. And we'll have a winning score. We have to keep the winning score, I think. And we'll have a WP as well. We've got an array of scores. No, we have an array of players, and each player has a score. So we're going to loop through that for K, P in range of players for K, P in range of players. Do this now. If P dot, and it was score. I think it's a capital score. Let's have a quick check of the word score. No, it's a lowercase score. You can see here. So back to wherever we were at the end. If P dot score is greater than WS, that's the winning score at the moment, then we need to check if P is unique. So we have a contains thing. We just use that contains again. If contains oh no, that works with integers, never mind. So we need another for loop. Count I equals 0. No. Count colon equals 0. For I colon equals 0. I is less than length players. This feels. I don't quite want to use the range method twice on the same list. So, and I am looping the same list twice. Semicolon I is less than. No, I've done that. I plus plus. If P dot score equals players I dot score, See, this is one of those great places where you really want to be able to just use break. There is another problem, because of course we need to check that p is not equal to I. But I'm just going to let it run through the loop because it's not actually that big. The loop's never going to be more than about 8, even with a full game. So it's a maximum of 64 loops it's ever going to do in a big game. I don't think we need to optimize too thoroughly. So in this case, count plus plus. Now, of course, this will count itself. So we need to check now. If count, and it should equal exactly 1, then we add it. And that is ws equals p.score, and wp equals k, which is its current position in the array. That's how the range thing works. And if ws is -1 at the end of this, we'll do it on wp actually, but they only both change at the same time. If wp equals -1, then we need to tell everybody it was a draw. Return, no, we'll do funct.printf draw, and then return. No, let's not. Yeah, return. And otherwise, funct.printf player, and then %d because we put a number out. Wins, new line, and then here we put wp. And just so that we can test this a bit more quickly, I'm going to drop this down to 3. Run go candlestick.go. So I want to win this still. I got 13, which is a king. So I'll play 13. It should give me good odds of winning. I win that one. But because of that, I've gone first. I'm going to play the 6. Someone else has won this. So if I get to win this round, then I should win the game. Otherwise, we'll see who wins the game. 12. Yeah, let's... No, they've played 12, 7, 2... I can't win this one myself, but if I can... No, I can't win the match. Just play 2. And it finished with player 2 wins, because player 2 has a unique score greater than -1. Okay, so I think that works, and now we are ready to start moving to the World Wide Web. So back over here to our function. I'm going to add that 1 back because this is supposed to be a 13-round game. And now I'm going to rename this function to play a game. Play game. And it's going to return an int, because then we can answer how many people played. Actually, I said I was going to move to doing the web, but I feel like this would be so much better if it just takes a number of players. M players, int players, and that's an int. And then we make this as big as m players, and this goes to m players. This goes to m players. And we've got one more loop to go. Ah, but that one I just used length of players, so that was fine. And we should probably put a return if m players equals 0, less than or equal to 0, return -1. Okay. So, oh, and then there are 2 returns at the end of this where the function finishes. The first is -1, and the second here is return WP, winning player. So by renaming this, we now no longer have something that will happen at the beginning of the program, because we are going to turn this into a server. We'll probably give it the option to be a server or play it command line at some point. So by keeping that function as it is, then we can access it later. For now though, func. We're going to name a function. Function func main takes no parameters, squiggly braces. Ooh, and we need to import. Who can remember what it was I called it at the beginning? Net HTTP. So this is going to work slightly differently. Currently, the game runs, it requests information and you give it information and it carries on when it's got the information. But of course, when we're working online, people come to us in their browser, they're going to send a message to us and we respond to that message. So we need to maintain in the background what's true in a way that's accessible for people as they come to us. So for that, we are going to need some form of game state struct that people can access when they log in. We're not going to do a login just yet, but we will need to at least have some access to what turn it is and everything about the players. Maybe we don't need what turn it is. We definitely need who won the last round, because we need to know who's going first and who's being what player. Let's just start by getting something actually running. So for this, we're going to make a handle function. Another func as well, func, and I'm just going to call this handle, which is a really lazy name, but it actually, this is our main handler for everything that's going to happen. And this will need to take parameters. One of the things that Golang does really well is the way you can use a function as a parameter to another function. And that is exactly what we are going to do with this function. So we're going to make a function, and then once we've made this function, we're going to tell another function that this is the function to call. But for us to do that, it needs to be exactly the right kind of function. It needs to take exactly the right kind of parameters and return exactly the right kind of things. So the things it needs to take, first it takes a HTTP dot response writer. This is an interface. We don't know exactly what we're going to get, but we do know for certain that it will have 3 methods. 1, write header, and 2, write the main. And I can't remember what the other does. Well, it's just write and write header. And I think it's got one other method, but I can't remember what it is right now. That's okay, because we're only going to use the write method. So as long as whatever comes through this bracket through as the parameter has a write method, it will work for us. So we're sorted with that. The next thing we need to take is a request. This is, I'm going to call it R, but we could call it whatever we like, a http.request. And this will contain all of the data from when the browser clicks on our link and goes and says, here we are, I want to know about this. All of that information will be in this request. So, very quickly, I'll give you an example of what it's going to do. We're going to now, we've used printf before, but I haven't told you about fprintf. oh, no capital P there, F, print F is exactly the same as printf, except that you tell it where to write to. And for that, this takes any writer again, anything that has a write method which receives a number of bytes, I think. And it works just like this. So we put the writer as our first parameter, and then we can put our string as the second parameter, and we can write hello, you pathed to colon, and then we use %s, and here we're going to put r dot url dot path, and that is our very lazy handle function that doesn't do a whole lot. Nope. And now here we do http.handlefunc, and this is the function that we tell to use our handle thing. But first we have to tell it what to. Oh, here we tell it when it uses it, and in this case I'm going to tell it from the root and everything after the root. This is basically just a string that says if the path looks like this, if the beginning of the path looks like this, handle it with this, and it will go to the first one that works, I think. And we just tell it to use handle, just like that. And the next one is http.listen and serve, and we tell it to listen and serve. And then we tell it what port to listen on. So colon, I'm going to say 8080. Of course, 80 is your main web. If your normal browser goes, it will just go to port 80 as its first guess. But in order to listen on port 80, we need to use super user permissions, and I don't really want to do that right now. So we're going to listen for port 8080. Anything between the 80 and 9. Any between 8,000 and 9,000 is a pretty good range for just stick it out on a port and test it. And then nil. I actually don't remember what that nil is supposed to be, but we just send something blank there. And that, when we run this, oh, I'm going to put in a little thing to say when it's compiled, because sometimes you're not sure how long it might have taken a little bit to compile. At least this way we do funct.printf server starting new line, and printf server starting new line. That should do the job. Okay, so now I'll come over here and I will run candlestick.go, and there is a problem here. Cannot use handle as type func http response wide to http request. Oh, guess what I forgot? The request is a pointer, not an actual plain request. So that should solve that problem. So just to clarify what happened there, I forgot that this needs, the request is a pointer, so that means you can actually edit the request even after it's come in. And this is an interface, which basically means you're probably going to get a pointer as well. But that could be anything. So now our server started. Did I quit it? Looks like I quit it. Or did it just finish? Oh, I might already be listening on 8080. I should probably have put I think this returns an error. I'm going to listen on 8081. Ooh, because I already have something listening on 8080. This actually returns an error, so let's leave it as 80 so you can see what would have happened. Try 0, not an O. ERR colon equals, and then we go if error does not equal nil, funct.println error. That should probably get us the information we need. So I'm going to run it again. Server starting. Yeah, bind already in use. So I think that's what I said the error was probably going to be. So if I just switch this to 81, we run it. And now it's started and it's going. And so we go to our local server. Just log in. Localhost, if you've not come across this before. So you just type localhost : and that is your computer. So you think you're pointing out to the internet, but you're actually just pointing to your local own computer. And then you just choose the port 8081. And here we go. Hello, UPath to root. Make sense? Let's try again. Let's try it again. But this time we're going to say hello. And now it says hello, UPath to hello. So we can actually read this bit of information from what someone says to us as they click on a link or whatever. So I'm going to use that to make our game begin. So first things first, I said that I'd make this program, these videos for people who have no real knowledge of the internet or anything at all behind it. So if you've not done this before, if you've not done anything with the internet before, it's helpful to know a little bit of HTML, and there are plenty of things you can go and find to get you started on HTML. I'm not going to do that right now, but I'm only going to use a few really basic HTML things so that we can get started just writing something to the web. As you saw, we're able to write text really easily. We can also put links that point to things relatively easily. So I'm just going to change this output to hello UPath to. I'm going to stick this in something called an anchor. And then we write href, that's just the name of it. Oh, forget those quotes. Oh, that's a problem. We'll do it like that. Href equals, and then I'm going to unquote it. Like I say, there is a much better way of making these making text to the internet. And next week I will cover that. For now it's going to be href, my name. And we just put root go. And again, close that, keep it quoted. Close that. So this is the way of including a quote in a quoted string by using a backslash first and then a quote that says treat this like an actual quote. What do you do though if you want to put a backslash? Well, then you just put 2 backslashes and then it treats that as a normal single backslash. So href equals quote go quote close back, and then we'll close the A over here, the anchor. And that's just basic HTML. Everything that's between this taggy thing here, the A, and this taggy thing here, then becomes a link that points to this place here. So now we can save this. We'll quit the server here, run it again. And now if we refresh this, we have a link. It says hello, you passed to hello. If I click on hello, we have now passed to go. And this is going to keep saying the same. I'll always point to go now. So we have the capability of sticking a link on our web page, and we can actually read that link. So if we start putting together links that actually point to card choices, we're starting to get a bit of a game working. Of course, we do still need to have an actual reference that we can access for that game. And if we wanted to make this available on the internet for lots of people to play, then of course we need to keep lots of instances of the games in the background, either saved as a file or otherwise. But I think that's a pretty good place to finish. I'd like you to, as your challenge, this time is to create basically to create a game. We can create variables outside of the function area, so I can have a variable here. So var game equals some kind of thing that you want to put, and then you can access that game anywhere in the program. So use that and create a new game and ask people using this ahref to choose a card from the list of cards that they ought to have. It's a little bit tricky, but I don't want to keep it too easy. And of course, if you're struggling to work out what to do, start off by trying to do something much simpler and then add little bits of functionality at a time. So maybe you don't know how to make it point to that exact one. We'll try and make it point to 2 or 3 different things, and then try and put that into a loop, how to point to 2 or 3 different things in that loop. Hopefully it will start to come together so you can actually create the variable and actually show that variable that you've created in here. Maybe even change it when you get back, because of course you can reference them with, what is it, URL path. So you can actually turn that into an integer. Have a play with it, see what you can do, because I mean, when you're programming, trying to do something exactly as I tell you isn't going to be nearly as fun as trying to make something for yourself. You have access to make stuff happen on the web. Learn about HTML, you can use your server and you can change things. Play with it. Have some fun. I'll see you next week when I try and make this do a little bit more. Bye for now.